Okay, everybody got a review sheet. All right, again, terms for which you'll need to know the definitions. These terms, I can almost guarantee you they will appear on the test, okay? And then the concepts, this is things that I'll be talking about in some detail, all right? So what's the first one? Scarcity. Scarcity means resources, right? Resources, not goods and services, but resources. The factors of production are insufficient to produce all things that humans could desire to have, okay? Human wants are unlimited in nature, but the things we need to create or satisfy those wants are limited in nature, okay? Factors of production, what do we have? Land, okay? That means natural resources. I don't know why they don't just call it natural resources. Labor, human beings to run machines. Okay. Capital. Okay. What do they call it? They don't call it capital. Physical capital. Okay. So capital, usually called physical. Okay. Physical capital means machines that we use to produce goods and services, and the buildings, factories, in which we do that activity, okay? And then we have, yeah, that looks like cap mal, okay? Capital, I can use my finger, can't I? Capital, yeah. Entrepreneurship, okay? The key ingredient, all of these other items, all of these other factors will just sit there. Somebody in a free market society, that means an individual, needs to assemble these other factors of production in order to enter in and coordinate them, right? We need an individual who's willing to buy the resources, hire the labor, buy the machines, and put them together to make goods and services. And these are entrepreneurs, individuals who are commonly called risk takers, right? They risk their time, their resources, their money to enter into, to assemble these other factors, to enter into business activities for the purpose of making money, right? Making money. And then finally, we have a more advanced form of human labor called human capital. Okay? These are individuals with training, experience, education that allow them to make a more substantial contribution to the production process. They're not just people who run machines, but they can design factory layouts, think of better ways of engineering a particular piece of equipment or product, okay? So these are what's known as resources, or if you prefer, the factors of production, okay? Oh, I left out human capital there too. I just put land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. You might want to add human capital. Opportunity cost, and in economics, cost is always defined as what you gave up, what you would have used that resource for instead, okay? Remember, we have a choice. We can use our resource for doing this, or doing that, or doing that, okay? If this is choice, let me change that. I don't like that, okay? Choice number 1, choice number 2, and choice number 3, in order. If you had time and you ranked what you were going to do, what you could do with your time in order, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do that, and if you rank it in order of what you would do first, this is what you used the resource for, that's what you gave up. This you didn't give up at all, because you weren't going to do that anyway, okay? Remember, opportunity cost is always choice number 2, what you would have done instead. Not all possible alternative uses, but what you would have done instead, right? Instead of coming to school, you would have slept in. Did that mean you gave up the opportunity to go and jog 5 miles? No, because you weren't going to do that anyway, okay? So choice number 2, opportunity cost. what we would have used that resource for instead. Scarcity. All right, what does scarcity? We already went through that, right? Scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. Because resources are scarce, okay, we can't use them for everything that we could possibly desire, and that forces us to choose what we will use our resource for, coming to school, and what will we give up, sleeping, okay? So scarcity forces us to make choices of how we're going to use our resources, and really that's what economics is all about. How individuals and societies decide to use their scarce resources to satisfy some of their unlimited wants. So we have to pick and choose what wants we're going to satisfy and what wants we're going to leave unsatisfied, because we can't have everything. Scarcity applies to all human beings, all societies, at all points in time. No matter where we are, who we are, we never have enough resources to do everything that we could desire to have, okay? So we have a cost. When we give up something to get, when we want more of one thing, we have to give up something else, right? If we have A's and B's, and we're right now producing this quantities of A's and B's, and we decide we want more A's, because our resources are limited, we have to give up some B's, okay? So we have a trade-off. We live a world of trade-off. To have more of one, we have to do with less of the other. Okay? So this is a production possibilities curve, right? Again, what the PPC shows is what is possible to produce. What is the maximum possible amount that we can produce if we use all available resources? We do not waste anything. All factories are working, all machines are running. Everybody who's out there wants a job has a job. If all resources are fully employed, we can produce a certain amount of A's and a certain amount of B's, okay? If I produce all A's, I'll be up here. If I produce all B's, I'll be here. If I decide 50-50, I'll be here, 75-25, 25-75, points there. We now can connect this curve, okay? And I'm going to erase it because I want to get rid of those points. What this curve represents are possible combinations of maximum output of A's and B's, okay? Let's say maximum I can produce 100 A's and 0 B's, or 100 B's and 0 A's, or 50 and 50, or 25 and 75, okay? 75 and 25, oops, did that wrong. All right? That every point on this line, if we are able to achieve it, is A plus B equals 100, okay? Possible production is represented by the curve. Actual production is represented by a point. If we are perfectly efficient, we can produce the maximum amount. Actual production will be here, somewhere on the curve. If we waste resources, then we can't achieve maximum possible production. We will produce something less than maximum possible. So if I have 10% of my workers idling, sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs, right? Then I can't achieve maximum possible. Actual production will be somewhere inside the curve, okay? If we have unemployment, if this represents the nation, if we are at full employment, as we just talked about, actual production is going to be on the curve. But if we have 10% unemployment, then actual production is going to be inside the curve. That won't change what we could do just because we're not using all of our resources, okay? This represents what's possible to do if everybody's working. But if not everybody's working, we have this resource that's not being fully utilized, we will produce less. So if we have 10% unemployment, we'll be inside the curve. If unemployment rises to 20%, we'll be even farther inside the curve. If unemployment rises to 100%, will be here. Actual production will be at 0, okay? But that doesn't change what we could do. The PPC represents what is possible to do under conditions of perfect utilization of resources. Everybody's working, all machines are running. Is it possible to be out there on the curve? No. Okay? There's always some wasted resource. And as I said, free market capitalist societies tend to be much more efficient, much closer to maximum possible than non-free market. They waste huge amounts of resources. Okay? And again, what this shows is, assuming we are achieving maximum possible production, that if we want more A's, we've got to sacrifice some B's. Unless, under what circumstances could we get more A's and not give up any B's? Under what circumstances would it be possible to increase the output of A's without giving up any B's? If we got more resources, but let's say we're not going to get more resources. Huh? No. What if we're back here? Can I now get more A's without giving up any B's? Yeah, I can go all the way up to here. Okay? If I have underutilized resources, then yeah, I can increase output without giving up any of the other. Okay? That if we have unemployment and I want to bring those people back to work making A's, I can make more A's without taking any resources away from B's. All right? Okay with that? Okay. But under most circumstances, what you will see, of course, is this. That, oops, always do that. That if we want more A's, we've got to give up B's. Okay? What this graph shows is a constant trade-off. That for every additional unit of A, we give up X numbers of units of B. Okay? That's why it's a straight line. It shows that the trade-off is constant. The slope is constant. Every time we want one of these, we give up two of those. We want another one of these, we give up two of those. We want another one of these, we give up two of those. Okay? But the production possibilities curve is not straight. The trade-off is not constant. We want one more of these. We want one more of these, we give up two of these. Then we decide we want another one of the A's. Now to get that additional A, we've got to give up 3 B's. And then we say, well, we'd like even more A's. Let's get another A. But to get that A, now I've got to give up 5 B's to get that additional A. Okay? The production possibilities curve is curved inward like that. Okay? We lose this bit. And what this shows is that opportunity costs increase. Don't forget this. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about wheat and corn, A's and B's, capital, consumption goods. Doesn't matter what they are. Widgets and lobsters. Okay? Opportunity costs always increase. If we want more B's, we've got to give up more and more and more A's. Okay? Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Opportunity costs always increase. Okay? The reason being is that when we want another A, where are we going to get that resource? We're going to get it from that resources that are producing these B's. We're going to look for the best possible resource for producing A's out of these B resources, right? So we're going to take the best land first, the best land suitable for growing rice, okay? Fine for growing wheat, very good for growing rice too. But when we want more rice, remember, we have to go back and we've already taken the best resource. What's left now is not as good as the first resource for this new activity. So we have to take more of it to get that same additional amount, okay? All right with that? Remember that business with the wheat land and the rice land. At the end, the land that I wanted to move into rice production was so terrible for rice production because that was all was left that I had to move 40 acres of land out of wheat just to get 1 or 2 tons of rice, okay? All right with that? Okay. So it is bowed, curved. we only do make two different kinds of goods. Okay? We make consumption goods, the goods that you and I buy to satisfy some of our unlimited wants, and we make capital, machines to make consumption goods. Okay? So we really only have two classes of goods: the goods themselves that we buy, or the machines to make those goods. Okay? If we only make consumption goods, well, I kind of skipped a step, right? I actually skipped a couple of steps. We were out here on the curve if we are perfectly efficient. We are inside the curve if we are wasting resources. We have unemployment. But out here is beyond maximum possible, right? We cannot produce out here unless we get either more resources, we have an increase in population of workers, or we have an advance in technology that allows us to get more out of the resources that we do have. Okay? If we get more resources or an advance in technology, the PPC will shift outwards. Okay? That represents economic growth. What is possible to produce increases. Okay? All right? Now, can we just say, let's have some more natural resources? No. Can we say, okay, let's have more people? Yeah, kind of. Oh, by the way, I saw a very interesting article sent to me by a student in another class about the population of Japan. Okay? Remember I said that we talk about populations, and I said it's only one country of the industrialized world that's growing. Japan's population, I think they said last year, declined by 17,000 people. The population shrunk by 17,000 people. Right now, they're seeing 1.7 births per couple, per family. Okay? They estimate that they need 2.07 or something like that births per family to maintain the population. So the population is shrinking, and it's going to shrink by a lot more because this is baby boomers having babies. The post generation of post baby boomers, like your age, right, having their babies. But once that wave is over, it's going to go down to 1.4, they estimate. Okay, so Japan should be losing probably 20,000 to 30,000 of its population every single year going forward, if not more. Okay, so what's happening to their production possibilities curve? It's shrinking in. It's moving inwards, okay, unless they come up with advances in technology or better methodologies to shift it back out again, okay? Real problem, right? Now, if we want to have more tomorrow, we can't just, well, we could just say, yeah, let's make more babies, okay? So we have a bigger labor force. In fact, the government of Japan is thinking about banning abortion, right? Making it illegal to have an abortion in Japan because they want to have more people, right? Okay. But if we can't just force people to have more kids, it's funny because China has the exact opposite problem, right? They have too many babies. They are restricted to two children per family, I believe, right? Or is it one? One, just one, right?
It now gets much more flexible.
Are they more flexible now?
They're worrying about the aging in the future.
Are they? Yeah.
Because by 2050, China will become one of the oldest countries.
Okay, because they're worried about the population becoming too old, aging. I mean, you guys have to support us, right? And as the population of younger people, babies shrinks, you get more and more older people and fewer younger people to support them, right? By the way, if you went to most countries, right, the population, like the United States, probably looks like this. More of a diamond shape, right? Few people rich, very large, middle class, and not so great, not so large, lower, less advantaged classes, okay? Many populations, of course, look like this, right, where you have a few elite, small middle class, and the vast majority are poor. You get to a place like Zambia, and it would look like this. Okay, what's that about? Any idea? Okay. There's no people. This is 50 to 80. And this is 10 to 20. And in between 20 and 50, not very many people. Why? That's part of it. Okay. Primarily, AIDS, HIV. Okay. Zambia, this is true in lots of southern Africa, where they're ravaged by HIV. And it has killed all of the, not all of them, but the oldest people, not so sexually active, of course, so probably less likely, and the youngest, of course, too young, so the people in between, right? So they've got a lot of old people and a lot of very young people. Nobody to raise the kids and nobody to support the old people because they've been destroyed by this terrible, terrible disease. Huh?
Are infected by HIV too, so then they will disappear.
That's quite possible too, that will happen. Yeah. Fortunately, the South Africans finally got their act together. The head of South Africa in the past, Mbeki, something like Thabo Mbeki, can't remember his name. He didn't believe that AIDS was a sexually transmitted disease. Okay. Anyway, I'll never forget. I went to India with my boss to meet, to do some things, and we met our export manager at the hotel or at the airport in Bombay, and this was going back into the 80s, late 80s, when the epidemic was really in full spring, and my boss says to the export manager, is there an AIDS problem here in India? Oh no, we don't have any AIDS here, practically no AIDS. All right. The next day, the newspaper, the Bombay Times, AIDS epidemic. He was so far off. He got fired because he was such a liar. That's not the only thing that he did wrong. Anyway, neither here nor there. Okay. Now, we can't just add population easily. Most countries can't. Okay. We can't just say, let's have more natural resources. But what we can say is, let's make more machines, okay? But to make some machines, we've got to give up some consumption goods. To make machines today, we have to give up consumption goods today. And if we add capital to our resource base, what becomes possible to produce tomorrow will be greater than today, okay? So again, we have two trade-offs. We give up consumption goods today to make capital today. Okay? So we sacrifice today these things in order to have some of these. If we do that, we will have more in the future. So we have two trade-offs. A trade-off today, we give up consumption goods today in order to have more capital today. And if we give up consumption goods today to make capital, we can have more consumption goods in the future. The more society can consume tomorrow. Okay? So if we want to have economic growth, we can't just satisfy all of our wants as possible. We have to give up some of these wants from being satisfied and use those resources to increase our resource base, to make more machines so that we can produce more tomorrow. And the PPC will shift out. Okay with that? I'll just go to another one. All right, you guys? Did I miss anything? What it represents? What points on, inside, and out it mean? Why it is bowed, not straight? What would make it shift out? Why we sacrifice consumer goods today? That's it. Okay? All right. Any questions on any of those? No? All right. How we do? Plenty of time. Okay. See ya. Demand and supply. Market. Demand, relative price, money price. Okay. Market are those places where we engage in exchanges, right? We could exchange goods for goods, but typically we exchange goods for money, right? And we do that in order to satisfy some of our unlimited wants, okay? Now, when we wish to buy goods and services to satisfy some of our unlimited wants, we have demand for those goods and services. And what the law of demand says is that at higher relative prices, less of a good will be purchased than at lower relative prices, okay? In other words, relative price and quantity move in opposite directions. Price rises, the quantity demanded falls, right? So we can show that. Price and quantity demanded. Okay? This shows an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, so we have a downward sloping demand curve. Price on this axis, quantity there. As price rises from here to here, the quantity demanded will fall from here to here. I think I must be off the grid here, okay? We are moving from one point on the curve to another. A change in price will lead to a change in quantity demanded. Okay? We will move up and down this column. That's a change in quantity demanded. Okay? All right so far? So the quantity we're willing to buy is first and foremost affected by the relative price of that good. Now remember, we're talking about relative price, not absolute price. Over the course of time, prices for most goods tend to rise. Some goods' prices rise faster than others. Those goods whose prices rise faster become relatively more expensive. Those goods whose prices rise slower become relatively cheaper, okay? What we care about is how much of other goods do I have to sacrifice to get this good? If that amount rises, I have to give up 2 pairs of sneakers to get a pair of shoes, whereas in the past I only have to give up 1.5, then that good becomes more expensive, right? I'll do that for you again, right? Sneakers and shoes, okay? At a price of $100 and $200, in order to get a pair of shoes, I have to give up 2 pairs of sneakers. Both prices rise by $100. Okay. Now shoes are $300 and sneakers are $200. Now to get a pair of shoes, I only have to give up 1.5 pairs of sneakers. So shoes, in terms of sneakers, have become cheaper. Instead of having to give up 2 pairs of sneakers, I only have to give up 1.5. Sneakers have, relative to shoes, become more expensive. In the past, to get a pair of sneakers, I had to give up 1/2 pair of shoes. Now to get a pair of sneakers, I have to give up 2/3 of a pair of shoes. Okay with that? All right? Okay. So it's the relative positions as they change over the course of time that matters. Not absolute price in and of itself. Absolute prices, money prices, the prices you pay when you go up and buy something, okay? We don't care about those except as how they relate to the absolute prices of other goods over the course of time. Everything tends to go up, but some go up faster and some go up slower. These become more expensive relative to these become cheaper relative to those, okay? So it's relative price. So again, if we're talking about sneakers okay, and shoes, oops, it costs me 2 pairs of sneakers to get a pair of shoes. It costs me 3 pairs of sneakers to get a pair of shoes. It costs me 4 pairs of sneakers to get a pair of shoes. Okay, what I have to sacrifice rises, then the quantity we're willing to buy of this good will fall. Okay? A downward sloping curve that shows as relative price increases, the quantity demanded falls. Okay? Now, if a non-price factor, a non-price determinant of demand changes, it changes all of these numbers, okay? More or less. if we have a non-price change. Remember, a price change moves us up and down in this column. If price is here, we'll buy that. Price goes to here, we'll buy that. We're moving from one point on the demand curve to another. That's a change in quantity demanded. But if something happens in a non-price environment that makes us want to buy more of these at every possible price, okay? Let's say, again, we find out that this will make you handsome. Okay? If you eat these widgies, if you eat those on a regular basis, you'll become better looking, right? It will cause us to buy more of them at every price, right? Okay? Yeah, damn right. Okay? So quantity demanded now at every price increases. So instead of only 4 quantity, we want 5 at that price, 4 at there, 3 at that price instead of 2, and 2 here. Okay? And what has happened here is that at every possible price we want more. The demand curve has shifted out to the right. Okay? This is an increase in demand. If at every possible price we wanted less, the demand curve would shift into the left, a decrease in demand. Okay? So when we have a change in a non-price factor, it shifts the entire curve in or out, and this shifting in or out, that is a change in demand itself. Okay? Change in quantity demanded, we're moving up and down in this column. Change in demand itself, we're moving from this column to that column, or vice versa. Okay? Change in demand at every possible price, we want more or less. Change in quantity demanded, the price of the good itself has changed. We move from one point on the curve to another. Okay? All right with that? Okay. Let's see, what else? Oh, I didn't go through these definitions. Relative price, money price, demand schedule, by the way. Those numbers that I put up, price and then quantity, as price increases, quantity falls. That's the demand schedule. When I plot it on a graph, I get the demand curve. Okay? So the demand schedule, the numbers themselves, give me the data that allow me to plot the demand curve on a graph. Okay? All right? Anything else in here? Normal and inferior goods. We're okay with those, right? Normal goods, if we have more money, right? If our incomes rise, remember, well, let's talk about this. What are the determinants of demand? First and foremost, price, okay? But then we have non-price. Remember, this leads to a change in quantity demanded, okay? Non-price factors change in demand itself. Okay? Shift the curve in or out. Okay? Changes in prices do not shift curves. Don't forget that. The price of the good changes, the curve does not shift. We move from one point on the curve to another. But a change in any of these non-price factors will shift the demand curve in or out. Okay? What would those be? Population. Number of people in the market for this good increases. At every possible price, more will be purchased. Okay? Incomes. If this is a normal good, if we earn more money, we buy more of it. Right? If I earn more money, I buy more wine. Okay? No matter what the price. Right? If we lose our income, we get laid off, and no matter what the price, we're going to buy less, right? So demand curve will shift in, a decrease in demand. Incomes, populations, incomes, prices of related goods. And we have two, right? Substitutes. If I don't buy chicken, I buy fish. Right, substitute. And complements. Every time I buy pizza, I buy beer. Because they go together perfectly. Okay. All right. When we have related goods, a change in price of one will shift the demand curve for its partner. Okay. Substitutes, tea and coffee. Coffee and tea. Price of tea rises. We buy less tea. And if we always have tea or coffee, if we're buying less tea, at every possible price, we will buy more coffee, okay? Because we're not drinking tea, we're drinking coffee. That's substitutes. Complements, right? Pizza and beer. Okay? If the price of pizza rises, I buy less pizza. And because I'm eating less pizza, at every possible price, I'm going to drink less beer. Okay? Make sense? All right? So a change in price of one will shift the demand curve for its partner. Complements, we buy less of this because the price went up. At every possible price, we need less of what goes with it. Substitutes, if we buy less of this because the price went up, at every possible price, we want more of the alternative. Okay? Yes?
I want to know that ethanol and corn, what's the relationship? Is that a complement ethanol and corn?
Ethanol and corn?
Yes, because corn used to make the ethanol.
Yeah, corn is used to make the ethanol. No. One is an input for the other. Okay? One is an input.
So how about the cars and ethanol?
Corn and ethanol?
The cars.
Oh, cars and ethanol. Those are complements, I would say, right?
So I have one question more.
Sure. Okay.
Maybe later on.
Maybe later. All right, fine. No problem. Right? Corn and ethanol?
Yeah, because if there's more cars being made, there's more ethanol.
Yeah, that's true too. Is that one of the problems? Really? Is it?
Here has one question is I should figure out if ethanol's price or ethanol's increase the supply, and how about corn will change? Corn will changing demand or will changing supply?
Ah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I need to figure out what's the relationship there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds complicated.
If corn change, then that is supply or demand the curve. So I will know how to do
Okay.
ethanol because
Sure. Corn, ethanol, and automobiles? We'll do that real quick. Okay? All right. So we have corn, supply and demand, ethanol, supply and demand, and cars, right?
But the question is with your ethanol first.
Okay.
Ethanol increase in the supply. So what will cause or what were the corn and
That's a good question.
cars?
There's an increase in the supply of ethanol.
Yes.
Okay. Are these regular cars or are they ethanol using?
They just said all.
Just says automobiles?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, if there's an increase in supply of ethanol, in order to produce that more ethanol, what's going to happen up here in the corn market if you make ethanol from corn? Increase in demand for corn, right, in order to produce that more. So demand for corn will increase and the price of corn will rise. Okay?
My question is, the corn is not to say that if you increase in demand, it should to the 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Oh,
These?
yes, you need to fit those things. It seems so. I couldn't find which. Why not in?
I think she's confused between
Supply and demand.
No,
Yeah.
she's confused between substitute complement and input.
And inputs, yeah, okay.
Input is relative.
Corn is not a complement or a substitute.
I guess that's.
Yeah, it's an input used to manufacture that. So
That means
that may be
if you
where.
make more ethanol, you're going to spend more money because corn is gonna be more expensive, and that's gonna let the cars are gonna be more expensive too.
Yeah.
But first, I want to figure out the corn. Why is that a shift that the demand curve?
Why would the demand curve shift
Yes,
out?
not a quantity demand, not a shift in quantity demanded.
Yeah, no, it would be a shift in quantity supplied. Ah.
But I want to figure out suit all those.
I tell you what, let me finish this and then we'll go to the problems for these 2 chapters, all right? And then we'll see if we can deal with that properly. Okay? All right. Okay. All right, so what else do we have also for non-price determinants of demand? Last one. Oh, yes. Okay, there's 2 more. Almost left that one out. Expectations about the future. Okay. If this is corn, and we think the price of corn is going to be going to be higher in the future, because more and more of it is going to ethanol production, what's going to happen to demand? Demand will shift out. We want it more now before the price goes up. Okay. So if we think price is going to go up in the future, demand for that good will increase today. If we think it's going to fall, then demand will fall. Okay? And then finally, tastes and preferences. Okay? We like this good more than we used to. Sushi. Okay? 25 years ago, how many people would be eating sushi around here? Nobody, practically. Just me. No. Okay? But as it becomes more popular, at every possible price, people will buy more sushi. Okay? All right? And at the same time, Chinese food used to be the only game in town. If you went out to dinner, you only had 2 choices, Chinese or Italian. Right? And as sushi becomes more and more available, relatively speaking, the popularity of Chinese food declines. Demand curve will shift in. Okay? All right? I had Chinese food for dinner last night. Now, you're from China? Are you from China? Whereabouts? North or south? Are you from China? Mainland China?
The middle of China.
Middle of China.
Yes.
Now, the food that you go, if you go to a Chinese restaurant here, can you find that same kind of food in China?
Actually, in Boston, it's quite possible. If we go to Brooklyn, there's a Chinese restaurant that make very same food.
Uh-huh. I've always wondered about that. You know, when you go to a Chinese restaurant, you order something, and it's like, do they really eat this in China? Okay. I've been to Hong Kong several times, and food's fantastic. And it's similar. Yeah.
I was in Hong Kong and China last week.
Oh, you were last week? Oh, I'm so jealous. Kowloon side? Kowloon side? Were you on Kowloon side or Hong Kong side?
Hong Kong is small.
I know. There's 2 sides, though. There's Hong Kong side and Kowloon side. Yeah. Did you go to Stanley Market?
What market?
The Stanley Market? Yeah. You know that one? That's not the best one. The best one's over in Kowloon, though.
Yeah.
Right? Market Street? Is
Ladies
that it?
markets.
Yeah. Great place to shop. Beautiful silk things for cheap. Oh, my God.
No, actually,
Not cheap anymore?
no.
Oh, damn.
Actually, the same cheap items are more expensive than in
Really?
China.
No kidding.
And the luxury items are more expensive than in USA.
Wow. Yeah, they had 100% tax on imported Mercedes-Benzes when I was there. 100% tax, and I have never seen so many Mercedes-Benzes in my life. I don't think so. Oh yeah, sure. I'll bet they do.
A lot of imitation.
I'll bet. Copy everything, right? Copy watch.
That's not in the department store. That's on the street market.
That's on the straight market. Yeah.
That's like
Sure. Anybody want a copy watch? All right, let's move on. Okay. All right, what else are we doing here? Remember one thing about normal and inferior goods, okay? This is hamburger, and this is steak. If we have an increase in income, what's going to happen over here in the steak demand? It's going to go up, okay? If we have an increase in income, what's going to happen here in the hamburger area? It's going to shift inwards.
Rich people just like eating hamburgers.
I don't know. I like a hamburger myself, actually. I went to Five Guys yesterday. You ever been to one of those, Five Guys? Oh, man, really, really, I could feel my heart going, blah, blah, blah. But man, was that good. Okay, inferior good. Normal good, inferior. When we earn more income, we buy more of the things that we really prefer to have and less of the things that we are taking because we can't afford anything else, right? So if we have an increase in income, we don't eat more hamburgers. We eat fewer, and we eat more steak instead, or more lobster, or whatever. Okay? Yeah.
Inferior good always just something that's compared to something else?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Not one inferior good.
Yeah, it's in comparison to some other alternative good. This is the inferior good. I'd rather have a car than a bicycle, right? I'd rather own a house than rent an apartment. Right. Okay, what else? Supply, okay. Supply curve. All right, supply, law of supply, just the opposite. The law of supply says as price rises, okay, not very good, but as price rises, we'll get more. If costs remain the same and the price of the good in the market rises, that means the profit on that good increases. So as profit increases, manufacturers will have a reason, an incentive, a reward for producing more. They will increase the quantity that they supply as price rises, okay? So we have an upward sloping, a positive relationship between relative price and quantity supplied, okay? At this price, that's how much will be supplied. If price rises to here, we will get more, okay? Price being the primary determinant, okay? And then we have all of the non-price determinants. Remember, when we get a non-price determinant at every possible price, oops, not doing these very good, okay? Okay, at every possible price, more would be wanted, or at every possible price, less would be wanted, okay? When there's a change in a non-price factor, the entire supply curve will shift in or out. When there's a change in a price, we move from one point on the curve to another. Again, this is a change in quantity supplied. This is a change in supply itself. Okay? The non-price factors that shift the supply curve, costs primarily. Okay? Costs can be the factors of production, land, labor, capital, taxes, exactly, or advances in technology. Okay? Advances in technology only reduce costs, right? But the cost of labor could go up or could go down. Taxes can go up or go down, but advances in technology only reduce costs, allow us to produce more for each worker hour, okay, or each unit of input. Right? Expectations about future prices. Manufacturers will act oppositely. Okay, from us, if they think if we all believe price is going to be higher in the future, then we want to buy now, demand will increase now, but they want to wait till the future arises to sell you, so they will cut back supply today, okay? So we'll have movement in opposite direction. They will react oppositely to us to expectations about the future, okay? And population, number of suppliers. If this represents production at every possible place by 5 producers, and we double the number of producers at every possible price, twice as much will be produced, okay? So these things will shift the curve, cause a change in supply itself. But if the goods' own price changes, and why would the goods' own price change? What would cause us to move from that point to another? Change in demand. Not quantity demanded, but a change in demand itself. Demand was here. This good became more popular. Demand shifted out. That caused the price to rise, which caused an increase in quantity supplied. So an increase in demand, whole curve shifting out, will result in an increase in quantity supplied. Okay? An increase in supply, let's say costs drop for producing this good, the supply curve shifts out, the price drops, which results in an increase in quantity demanded. Okay? So an increase in supply will result in an increase in quantity demanded. All right? So the reason why quantity demanded or quantity supplied changes, why price changes, is because the other curves shift. In order to get a change in quantity supplied, the demand curve has to shift in or out. In order to get a change in quantity demanded, the supply curve has to shift in or out. Okay? So a change in supply leads to a change in quantity demanded. Change in demand will lead to a change in quantity supplied. All right? Okay. Now we'll put them both together. Okay. We have a downward sloping demand curve, an upward sloping supply curve, and as we can see, at some point they intersect. At some price, the equilibrium price, the quantity demanded at this price, that's the quantity demanded, and the quantity supplied at that price, it's the same quantity supplied, are equal. It is the market clearing price. Everything that gets produced gets sold. There's no surplus or shortage. If price is above here, above equilibrium, at that high price, manufacturers want to give us a lot, okay, 20, but at that high price, only 10 of us are willing to buy. That causes a surplus, and what's the size of the surplus? 10, okay, 10, so we have a surplus of 10, a surplus. In order to attract more buyers, manufacturers are going to drop their price. As price drops, the quantity demanded increases. So if the price drops to here, okay, we will want more of them. Now we want 15, but they're going to supply less. Instead of 20, that's a bad example. We'll make it 18 and 18, okay? Otherwise we're going to have a problem, all right? Oh, we still have a problem. We want 12, okay? And they're now giving us 18, all right? Still a surplus. Drop the price down to here. Now 15 of us want them as the price falls, but because price has gone down, they're only offering 15. Now we're in equilibrium. There's no reason to lower price anymore. There's no longer a surplus. Everything they're producing is getting sold, okay? So when we have price above equilibrium, that will cause price to fall to the equilibrium point and eliminate the surplus. Okay? All right, yes, Julio?
I have a question. Okay, if quantity demanded moves to the right, well, if the demand curve moves to the right, there's going to be more quantity demanded.
There'll be more demand. There'll be a greater quantity supplied and consumed. Equilibrium quantity will go up. If this good becomes more popular, say, the demand curve will shift outwards like that, right? And now this will become the new equilibrium price. That's an increase in demand. At every price we want more. But as that price goes up, it causes an increase in quantity supplied. We move from one point on the curve to another. Okay?
And that's because price is going up. At some point, supply is going to be, there's going to be more supply. So that's
More quantity supplied.
Yeah.
Okay?
No supply.
No, that would mean the whole supply curve. If there's more supply, that means the entire curve shifted out. Remember, the only thing that's going to cause that to happen is a change in a non-price factor. Expectations about the future, costs, profits, okay? So change in price doesn't shift the curve, okay? Change in price is caused by a curve shifting, but change in price itself does not actually physically move the curve at all, okay?
Okay, when one curve moves, the other doesn't necessarily have to move.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Exactly right, okay? In fact, most situations are going to be, you're going to see that only one curve is shifting, okay? Now, oppositely, here's equilibrium price. If price is below equilibrium, instead of a surplus, we end up with, of course, a shortage. At that low price, we want a lot, 20, but at that low price, manufacturers aren't making any money, only offering 10. 20 of us want to buy, only 10 available. Those individuals who place a higher value on this good than the current price will offer a higher price in order to get them. So consumers competing for a limited amount will begin to bid up the goods price. As the price rises to here, now that higher price causes manufacturers to increase their output to 12, but that higher price causes us to reduce our purchases to 18. Still a shortage. Those people who place a higher value on this good will begin to bid up the price. The price rises to here, manufacturers will increase their output to 15, but we will reduce the quantity demanded now from 18 to 15. Now we're in balance. Now there's enough to go around. No reason for anybody to bid up the price, okay? So when there's a shortage, price is below equilibrium, and that will cause price to rise. I almost always gave students a question, what's the difference between scarcity and shortage? Scarcity cannot be eliminated. Shortages can. Shortage can be eliminated by raising the price. Scarcity can never be eliminated, okay? So we are in balance here. And why would the price change? Hey, put that back. Why would the price change? Because demand shifts out. This good becomes more popular. Or the government cuts taxes on producers, so the supply curve shifts up and the price falls and quantity changes, okay? All right? All right, let's look at some of the problems, okay? Let's go back to chapter 2. Let's see. All right. We had 2-6. The following table illustrates the points a student can earn on a combination of economics and biology if they use all available hours of study. If I drew this curve, what would it look like? Actually, it would be a straight line. Yep. Okay? We get 10 more, we lose 10, right? Each additional point here takes 1 point there. However, what about 2-8? Now we have the increasing, right? We have a bowed curve, right? Exactly right. This one illustrates increasing opportunity costs. If we start with a grade of 40 in economics, in order to go from 40 to 50, we only have to give up 2 points in biology. But if we want to go from 50 to 60 in economics, then we give up 5 points in biology. And if we want to go from 60 to 70, we've got to give up 8 points in biology. So what it is costing for additional economics points in terms of biology points gets larger and larger and larger. So that is a bowed production possibilities curve. I'm not going to bother plotting it. Okay. It's not a very nice curve, is it?
Yeah.
No.
The way you draw it in the computer becomes very similar.
Like that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't look right. Yeah, that's better.
Use Excel.
Yeah. Huh. Better get a new program. Okay. 2-10. During a debate on the floor of the Senate, Senator Creighton says, our nation should not devote so many of its fully employed resources to producing capital goods. Okay? So, if resources are all fully employed, where are we? Inside the curve, on the curve, or outside? On the curve, okay? If we're producing more capital than consumption goods, we are closer to this axis than that, so we're going to be up here And the point is, yes, C, okay? In 2-12, Senator Borman says, in fact, an unacceptably large portion of the nation's resources are currently unemployed, okay? If we have unemployed resources, where are we? Inside the curve, exactly right, point A, okay? Point A. And then we have 214, right? Like physical capital, human capital produced in the present can be applied to the production of future goods and services. Consider the table in the problem in 213. Suppose the nation's trying to choose between C and F. Other things being equal, will the future production possibilities curve for this nation be located farther outward if the nation chooses combination F instead of combination C? Okay. So combination C is 20 units of consumption goods and 90 units of capital, and F is 50 consumption goods and 30 of capital. Which combination will shift the production possibilities curve out faster or farther? C, yes, of course. They're producing more capital, human capital. So adding resources means more production in the future. Okay? Those weren't very hard and didn't take very long, did they? No. All right, chapter 3. 3-4. Okay. In the market for flash memory drives, a normal good, explain whether the following events would cause an increase or decrease in demand, or an increase or decrease in quantity demanded. Okay. Now the first one I said was that their storage racks are, what did I say they were? A cost of producing. Okay. So I'll get rid of this. So here we have flash drives, and if the cost of storage racks goes up, what's going to happen here? Supply is going to shift in, okay? And what will happen? Will we have a decrease in demand or a decrease in quantity demanded? A decrease in quantity demanded, that's right. We move from this point on the demand curve to the other. So if the cost of manufacturing the good rises, the supply curve goes in, shifts in, the price of the good rises, and we will reduce the quantity we demand. Okay? Quantity demanded, right, sorry. There's a decrease in the price of computer drives that read information contained on flash memory drives, okay? So what are computer drives compared to flash memory drives? Flash drives here, and would they say computer drives here? Okay? They're complements, right? In order to read your flash drive, you need a computer drive, okay? So if the price of computer drives falls, what happens in this market? There'll be an increase in quantity demanded of these. If we're buying more computer drives, then at every possible price, we would buy more flash drives. They're complement. There will be an increase in demand. Okay. C, there's a dramatic increase in the price of secure digital cards that are a substitute for, okay? So what did they call these again? Digital cards, okay? Digital cards. The price of these goes up. These are substitutes. If we don't use digital cards, we use flash drives. So if the price of digital cards goes up, what's going to happen in the market for flash drives? Increase in demand, exactly right. If we're buying fewer of these, oops, sorry, I was supposed to go this way, because the price went up, and at every possible price, we'll buy more of the substitute. Okay, so increase in demand. D, a booming economy increases the income of the typical buyer. Increase in demand, that's right. Incomes are one of the ceteris paribus conditions of demand. We have more money. At every price, we buy more of the things that we desire. So we would get an increase in demand. Consumers of flash memory drives expect that the price of this good will be lower in the future. Decrease in demand today, right. We will buy less today, wait for the future to arrive. Okay with that? All right. 3-6. For each of the following shifts in the demand curve and associated price change of a complement or substitute item, explain whether the change in the price of the complement or substitute must have been an increase or a decrease. Okay? All right, so what happened to the price of the substitute to cause whatever is going to happen here? So what's the first one? A rise in the demand for dashboard global positioning system devices follows a change in the price of what? Okay, which are complements. Okay, so if there's an increase, if they're complements, what happened to that? Okay. Come on. Okay. Okay, so these are global positioning GPS items, and these are cars, right? Complements. So if the price of a car goes down, we'll increase the quantity demanded of cars. So what's going to happen over here? Shift out. Exactly right. If we have more cars, then we're going to need more GPSs. Okay. Every possible price. Imagine in the old days we actually had to stop somebody and ask directions. A fall in the demand for e-book readers follows a change in the price of e-books. Okay. All right, which are complements. All right. So Kindles, there's a fall in demand for Kindles, a decrease in demand for. Is that going to work? Okay. Kindles, a decrease in demand. In order for that to happen, what had to have happened to the price of ebooks? What would cause us to buy at every possible price fewer ebook readers? Huh? Yeah. No. Increase. Increase. Sure. If the price of ebooks goes up, we buy fewer ebooks. And if we're not reading ebooks, at every possible price, we buy fewer ebook readers. Okay?
So the price increase.
Question was, there's a decrease in demand for ebooks. Okay? After the price, of ebook readers. Okay? A decrease in demand for ebook readers when the price of ebooks changed. Well, if the price, if the price of ebooks came down, if they were real cheap, then all of us would go out and buy ebook readers, Kindles, right? Okay. All right, so these are related goods, complements, right? This one gets more expensive at every possible price. We buy less of what goes with it, all right? Okay with that one? Yeah. So the price of the ebook would rise. Okay. If the price of ebooks goes up, I gotta fix this. Where did that go? We buy fewer ebooks, and so if we're buying fewer ebooks, we need fewer readers. Okay with that? Move on. Oops. Let me get rid of this one. And that 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 one. Okay. All right. What else? Are we all done with this? No. A rise in the demand for tablet devices follows a change in the price of ultra-thin laptop computers, which are substitutes. Okay. A rise in demand for tablets. So, tablet. I wish they'd use proper terminology. Increase in demand for tablets. Okay. What had to happen over here at, what were they, ultra-thins, notebooks? What had to happen over here? Nope.
No, inside.
Close. Price increase. Exactly right. Okay. Price was here. Now it goes up to here. We buy. Oh, sorry. I made a mistake on the wrong. I put it on the wrong one. Sorry about that. Okay. Notebooks. Price was. Wait a minute. Okay. Yes. All right. Okay. That was right. All right. We were buying that many notebooks, but when the price rose, we bought less. So if we either buy a notebook or a tablet, if we're buying fewer notebooks because the price went up, at every possible price, we would buy more tablets. Okay? Right? So the reason why demand increased for tablets was because the price of notebooks went up. Right? A substitute. Okay with that one? Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned this to you. The odd number problems, the solutions are in the back of the book. So if you're doing an even number problem and you're having a little trouble with it, you might check the odd number problem that's just before it or after it. It might be very similar, and work that one and check your answers in the back. Okay? Forgot to mention that, sorry. All right, 3-8. Which of the following would generate a decrease in demand for ebook readers? A normal good. Okay? An increase in the price of downloadable apps used to enhance ebook reading experience, which are complements. Okay? So an increase in the price of complement will do what to demand for ebooks? Decrease it. Exactly right. Right? If price of a complement goes up at every possible price, we need less of what goes with it. Okay? So ebooks. All right, so that would be a decrease in demand. Shift in. Okay? An increase in the number of consumers in the market for ebook readers. What would that do? Increase demand itself. Demand would shift out. Increase in population, right? A decrease in the price of tablets, which are a substitute. Price of tablets goes down. What's going to happen to the quantity demanded of tablets? It will increase. So if we're buying more tablets, we need less ebooks. Okay? D, a reduction in the incomes of consumers of ebooks, ebook readers. Income falls, what happens to demand? Decrease, shifts in. Okay? We have less money at every possible price, we'll buy fewer.
No, maybe people don't have time to go outside and stay home.
Maybe. No, you will have time. Yeah, order it online. Okay with that one, everybody? 310. Consider the market for paper-bound economics textbooks. Explain whether the following events would cause an increase or decrease in supply or an increase or decrease in quantity supplied. Okay? Okay. So, the price of paper goes up. Oops, supply, not demand. We're in supply now. Okay. What has paper to do with books? Yeah, it's an input. So if the price of paper goes up, what's going to happen to the supply curve? Shift in, right? As costs rise, supply curves shift in. So we get a decrease in supply, okay? If the market price of paper goes up. What if the market price of economics textbooks themselves goes up? What will we get? Exactly. Increase in quantity supplied. Move from one point on the curve to another. Okay? So we get an increase in quantity supplied that time. Right? The number of publishers of economics textbooks increases. Increase in supply itself. If this is 5, if we get 3 more would be produced at every possible price. Increase in supply. Publishers expect the market price of economic textbooks will be higher next month. Decrease, right. They will wait until next month's arrives, and then they will supply. So they will cut back supply today and wait for the future to arrive, okay? All right, last problem here. Flash memories again. If the price of flash memory chips used in manufacturing smartphones decreases, okay, what will happen in the market for smartphones? How will the equilibrium price and quantity change? Okay. So what was that? The price of an input, right, goes down. We'll have an increase in supply. And what will happen to equilibrium price? It will go down. And what will happen to equilibrium quantity? It will rise. Exactly right. Okay? Everybody good with that? No. Now it's getting clear? Good. Well, you're not the only one. Believe me, Julio. I guarantee you. You're not the only one. Now, where's the problem that you wanted me to look at?
I I think you already sold.
I did? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. All right then. Last section for review. Extensions of supply and demand analysis. Okay. This is all about the price system, right? What is the price system? System of distributing, allocating goods and services, right? A system in which relative prices are constantly changing to reflect changes in supply and demand, right? That's why prices change, because costs fall, supply curve shifts out, price comes down, the goods become more popular, demand curve shifts out, the price goes up, right? Expectations about the future change, cause the curves to shift, cause the equilibrium point to change. This is why prices are constantly changing throughout the economy, okay? Transaction costs, these are the costs that we bear to engage in the process of exchange, right? Transaction costs are the costs of comparing alternative possible purchases, negotiating the deal, and then once the deal is done, it's the cost that the manufacturer, the supplier, pays to enforce that deal. That if you don't pay, they sue you, or they have to pay somebody to repossess your car, or they cut the sheriff to come and take you out of your house. Right? You can live in a house for a long time without paying your rent. You know, it's really hard to get people out once they're in. Yes, Julio?
For the test, we only have to worry about the price system, not the other two.
What do you mean?
Because I remember there was one system that people have to line to get.
Oh yeah, no, but you will need to. Well, we use the price system. Prices do two things for us, right? Prices ration goods and services to those willing and able to pay the highest price. If there are more people willing and able to pay the current price, we'll have than the amount available, we'll have a shortage, and that price will rise. And only those people willing to pay the highest price, the equilibrium price, will be those that get it, okay? So the price system rations goods and services to those willing and able to pay the highest price, okay? In addition, the prices send signals of what's relatively scarce and what's relatively abundant. As a good becomes harder and harder to find, okay, the price of that good will rise. As a good becomes more and more abundant, easier and easier to get, the price of that good will fall, okay? This is why paper clips are really cheap and diamonds are very expensive, right? Okay. Did I tell you about that time I bought a diamond in Holland? I was flying from London to Holland on business. And I get on the plane, and next to me is a Hasidic Jew, okay? Tall guy wearing completely black, head to toe, with the long hair and everything. And I'm like, this is going to be wonderful, right? So the attendant comes down the hallway and she says, "Would anybody like a drink?" And he says, "Yeah, I'll have a double scotch on the rocks." I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. Right? And I was talking to him, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, I'm going to visit my family in Amsterdam. And I got some business there too. And it didn't seem like he really wanted to talk about it too much, so I let it go. The next day I was with my partner I was visiting, and I said, "Listen, I'd like to buy a diamond for my wife because Amsterdam is the diamond cutting capital of the world, okay?" And he says, "Well, it just so happens we used to have a guy who used to work here. He now works in his family's diamond business, so why don't we go down and see him at lunchtime?" So I went down with him at lunchtime. We couldn't find the guy. Okay, he wasn't there. So on the way back to his car, who do I see walking down the street? But the guy I was on the plane with. And he says, "Hi, hey, well, how are you doing?" I said, "Yeah, great. I'm not so happy, though. I've been looking for a diamond." He says, "Well, I just happen to be in the diamond business." Okay? And he said, "If you like, I bought $50,000 worth of diamonds, but if you like, I'll go back and I'll pick one up for you." He says, "How much do you want to spend?" $400. So this goes back to the 80s, okay? And I was, my wife wasn't working; she was home with the kids, right? We didn't have any money, and that's all I could spare, $400. So he says, "Okay, I'll come back to your hotel tonight." About 5:30, I get a phone call. He's down in the lobby. I said, "Come on up." And he says, "Well, I've got good news and bad news." And I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" He said, "It's going to cost you $425." He said that the good news is I went through a bunch of diamonds. I picked the best 10 that I could find. And then I went through those diamonds and I picked the very best one. He said, "This diamond is perfect, absolutely perfect." Like, well, if I can't trust this guy, who can I trust? So I bought it. I gave him the money. And then I took it home and I had it appraised, $1,200, right? Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was like, man, I got to go back there. At any rate, diamond prices tend to be very high because they are scarce. Why? Because there's a monopoly on diamonds. De Beers controls the diamond market. Okay, De Beers, the South African or Dutch company, controls the market. And what do? They keep the supply artificially low to keep the price of diamonds high. Okay, all right. So, what else do we need to know? All right. Price system, money price, relative prices constantly changing to reflect changes in supply and demand. We bear transaction costs when we engage in the process of exchange. Middlemen are there to reduce transaction costs, to reduce the time and effort and money it takes us to make comparisons and to make a purchase. Okay. Now, when both curves are shifting, okay, we can know one thing or the other. Okay? We cannot know both unless we know which curve is shifting more than the other. Okay? This should be fairly straightforward for you now, right? This good becomes more popular, and at the same time, there are advances in technology that allow it to be produced at a lower cost. So supply curve shifts out, and demand curve shifts out. Okay? This good becomes even more popular, and costs continue to fall. So the supply curve shifts out again, and the demand curve shifts out again. Okay? As supply and demand are increasing, we are moving in this direction. So we know that if both demand and supply are increasing, we are getting increases in equilibrium quantities going up. But we don't know what's happening to price. We started here, both curves shifted out, equilibrium price rose to there because demand shifted out more than supply. We wanted a lot more, they only gave us a few more. That caused a shortage and price to go up. Then demand and supply shifted out again. But this time, the demand curve didn't shift out as much as the supply curve. So this meant they gave us a lot more, and we only wanted a few more. Surplus, price will fall, and price did fall, okay? So we started here, both curves shifted out, price went up to there, both curves shifted out, price dropped down to there, okay? And what this means, obviously, is unless you know which curve is shifting more, you don't know what's going to happen to price. When both curves are shifting in the same direction, we're moving in and out along this axis, we can say for sure what's going to happen to quantity. But without knowing which curve is shifting more, price is indeterminate, cannot be determined, okay? Oppositely, when both curves are shifting in opposite directions, we can figure out what's going to happen to price, but not quantity. It depends on which shifts more. If we want more, okay, and they give us less, what's going to happen? We're going to have a shortage, and price will rise, okay? If we want less, but they give us more, surplus, price will fall. But which curve shifts more will determine what happens to quantity, okay? In this case, it looks like quantity went up just a little bit. But I could easily have done it so that supply shifts out a little bit, but demand shifts in a lot. Now what happened to quantity? It went way down. If I had drawn, if that thing would work properly. Okay, all right? So you don't know what's going to happen to quantity, all right? Both curves shifting in opposite directions, we know what's going to happen to price. We want more, they give us less, price is going up. But what happens to equilibrium quantity depends upon which curve shifts more, okay? We want a few more, but they give us a whole mess less, quantity is going to go down, right? We want a lot more, and they only give us a few less, quantity is going to go up, okay? Does that make sense? Say what, Julio?
Can we do number 2?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do number 2. Right now? Okay. Yeah, these problems are a little complicated, okay? You have to read them carefully. All right, so we have pharmaceuticals, right? Farm, demand, supply. Now, the aging society, people getting older, that means they're going to need more pharmaceuticals, right? So we will have an increase in demand for pharmaceuticals, right? Okay. But at the same time, technological advances allow the cost of production to fall. So what's going to happen to supply? It will shift out, okay? So what does this say? What's the question? And evaluate the effects on market price and quantity. What's going to happen to equilibrium quantity? It's going to go up. What will happen to equilibrium price? Don't know. Exactly right. It is indeterminate. Depends on which shifts more. Okay? You all right with that one? Here's another one. 4.8 is very similar. Okay? The consequences of decriminalizing drugs for both sellers and buyers has long been debated. Some claim that legalization will lower the price of drugs and reduce related crime, and that more people will use these drugs. Okay? Suppose that some of these drugs are legalized so that anyone may sell them and use them, that the price will fall and the quantity demanded will increase. Okay? Are these claims sound? Okay? So, if it is no longer illegal to supply these goods, okay, what's going to happen to the number of suppliers in the industry? It will increase. Okay? So supply will increase. And if you can't get arrested for buying these drugs, what's going to happen to demand for them? That will increase also. Okay? So what will happen to quantity, equilibrium quantity used and consumed? What will happen to the price of these drugs? Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. Depends on which shifts more. In this case, the price actually went up. But I could have shifted them both out so that it was like that, and the price went down. Okay, remember, both curves are now shifting in the same direction. We can figure out quantity, but we cannot determine price. Okay? I wonder what's happened since the legalization or semi-legalization of marijuana in Massachusetts, whether there's been an increase in supply and demand. I wonder. Might be a good business. Huh? What happened?
Every 3 blocks there's a dispensary.
There's a
shut down. So it's like everyone made all this money for about a year.
and then they went out of business. All right, now let's see. One more. Is there one more to do here? 4-14. In advance of the recent increase in U.S. minimum wage rate. Oh, by the way, I just happened to be watching. There are 2 things I wanted to tell you about. I just happened to be watching. Actually, it's probably related. The Fox News channel. I watch it in the morning so I can get the news. I'm not the news, the weather. Right? Otherwise, I don't like Fox News much. I saw a great bumper sticker. Are you familiar with The Daily Show? Yeah, I saw a great bumper sticker. I watch The Daily Show for news, and I watch Fox News for comedy. Okay? At any rate, 2 things the guy said was that they're voting to raise minimum wage. And he said, for every certain amount that minimum wage goes up, the unemployment rate amongst black teenagers rises by 2 to 3%. Okay? And that's a proven fact, that when they raise minimum wage, it increases unemployment amongst younger, undereducated, underskilled people. Okay? The other thing that I also saw was that, we talked about the natural rate of unemployment. Okay? It's estimated, and I think it was in this book, that the natural rate of unemployment today is probably 7% or higher, okay? 7% or higher. That frictional plus structural unemployment is equal to about 7% of the labor force. What's the unemployment rate today? 7.9, 8%, something like that. So we're not, if it's 7.2%, we're not that far off from full employment, right? I mean, they're constantly talking about jobs and jobs and jobs, but the truth of the matter is, if you believe that the natural rate of unemployment is in excess of 7%, we're not too far off from full employment in the current economy. Not sure I buy that, okay? Not sure I buy that, but whatever. I just wanted to mention that. Huh? In theory, exactly. In theory. What?
Probably wouldn't hear that on Fox News.
No, you probably won't. Okay, now let's see. The government of the state of Arizona decided to boost its own minimum wage by an additional $1.60 an hour. This pushed the wage rate earned by Arizona teenagers above the equilibrium wage rate in the teen labor market. So if I drew this, okay, here is equilibrium wage, and what a minimum wage, is that a price floor or a price ceiling? Floor, right? And price floors, to be effective, always have to be above. So what did they say it was? They didn't say what it was, but let's say it's $9 an hour, okay? If we were at equilibrium at $8 an hour, and they raised minimum wage to $9 an hour, what will happen to the quantity of labor supplied by Arizona teenagers? Now, we supply labor, business buys labor, okay? So if the wage rate rises to 9, what's going to happen to the quantity of teenagers looking for jobs? It's going to increase. There'll be an increase in quantity supplied, okay, from here to here. But what's going to happen to quantity demanded? It will decrease, exactly right. From here, from this quantity, now back to here. This is the demand curve. And what's that going to cause? A surplus of unemployed teenagers, right? So again, minimum wage, at least according to this author and many others, minimum wage is not really good. It's great. If minimum wage goes up and you keep your job, good for you. But minimum wage goes up, you're more likely to get laid off if you're a minimum wage worker, and if you don't have a job, your chances of finding a job have just gone down because the quantity demanded of labor is going to fall. Okay? Any questions? Is that all of the problems?
Yes.
Good. All right. There's just a couple more things to wrap up, and we can call it a week. Hey? So we have rationing function, right, prices ration goods and services to those willing and able to pay the highest price, meaning equilibrium price, okay? And they are indicators of relative scarcity, okay? But they're not the only way we can ration goods and services. In fact, other economies don't use the price system. Non-free market economies don't use prices as signals of anything, okay? They keep prices artificially low. Everybody should be able to afford this, right? No matter who you are, you should have enough. We'll make sure you have enough income to buy whatever it is you need. But the problem is when prices are kept artificially low, we end up, of course, with shortages, okay? Shortages for everybody. So there has to be some other way of rationing goods and services if we don't use prices and incomes. Okay? Everybody makes the same, and all prices are the same. Okay? So how can we? First come, first serve, standing in line, queuing, common. You're at the head of the line, you get. You're at the back, you don't get. Random assignment, put your names in a hat. I pick one out, you get. You don't, name doesn't get picked, you don't get. Okay? Lottery, that's lottery, right? Belonging to the right group. Okay? Beautiful women get, the rest of you. Okay. Or you belong to the right ethnic group or the right tribe or the right religion, okay? Then you get. If you don't, you don't get. Or physical force. You have the power and the guns. You get. If you're weak and have no power, then you're left out, right? Okay, which is often the way things work. Okay, so there's lots of different ways of rationing. Right? But we have to figure out some way to ration. Price controls, again, based on normative economics, we made a decision. Nobody should have to work for less than this. Anybody who works for a living ought to make enough to make ends meet. What else? Farmers should be able to stay in business, make enough money so we don't become a nation of importers of food or whatever. So the government, based on our normative economic wishes, our desires, decides to put in either a price floor or a price ceiling. Okay? Price floor, minimum wage, and agricultural supports. If you work, you should be able to earn enough money to pay your rent. Okay? So we're going to keep the price artificially high. But as we know, whenever price is above equilibrium, it causes a surplus. So we end up with a surplus of labor, a surplus of cheese, a surplus of butter and milk. Okay? In terms of these agricultural commodities, the farmer, it doesn't do the farmer any good to sell a few for a lot of money when he can't sell all of it, or a lot of it. Okay? So in order to make the system work, the government has to buy up the surplus with our tax money, and they give it away. Okay? Shortages, rent control. In order, nobody should have to pay more than this to live in the People's Republic of Cambridge. And what do rent controls do? They are a price ceiling, right? Don't forget this. Ceilings are below equilibrium, floors are above. Okay? Floors keep the price from going down to equilibrium, ceilings keep the price from rising. And whenever we have a price below equilibrium, we end up with shortages. So places that have rent control, we end up with shortages of apartments. Producers of apartments aren't willing to supply as many as they normally would because they're not making any money on them. Not only that, but the quality tends to deteriorate also because they can't afford to maintain them. And of course, we get rise to these subletting black market type things. I have the apartment, it's mine, I'm only paying $500 a month. If I moved out, he would charge $1,200 a month to the next tenant, so I'll rent it to you for $8. Okay? All right? So we get all kinds of distortions in the economic exchange process when prices aren't allowed to properly ration goods and services. Whenever the government puts in place price floors or price ceilings, whenever they interfere with the free functioning of the price system, we end up with either surpluses or shortages. The system isn't allowed to work efficiently. It isn't allowed to achieve equilibrium. Okay? That's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else we really want to talk about.